I am very sorry. That's an epic fail. I was just spilling my heart out to everyone. I actually have the recording. Oh God, now I've got too much sound. So sorry. Oh Lordy. Shall I start again? Oh my God. I have actually recorded what I had said. I don't know whether I can do it quite the same, but oh dear. All right. Should we start over? Okay. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh dear. Tell me you can hear me. Anyone have his phone number? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Now? Yes? No? Oh God, I can't. I'm not seeing the stream. Okay, great. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay, great. Wow. I've got to begin my emotional plea. I've actually got it recorded, so maybe I'll clip that bit out from the recording locally and post it, because I don't know whether I can do it again. Oh dear. All right, so I'm spilling my emotions there, and you can't hear any of it. That's really funny. Okay, so all right. So essentially, what happened was, and I'll make this brief for now. Oh God. There was a presentation I did called O-Day Phase Change, where I talked about the work of Vladimir Alexandrovich Chizov, who was the laureate of the Council of Ministers of the USSR Prize, one of the most important and sought-after prizes as a scientist you could possibly achieve in the former Soviet Union. He did that for developing the method of creating large, pure silicon dioxide quartz crystals that enabled the Soviet Union to produce high-powered lasers and all the other emergent technologies that comes from that. But he did a presentation called On the Influence of Accelerated Bodies on Other Bodies, Light and Gravity. And this was a shock for me, because this basically verified everything that I'd been saying since 2021, 2022 about how the Ultra experiment worked. And of course, the cohering nature of this process, I believed, was enabled by not just a wheel accelerating, but a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And it's this fractal magnetohydrodynamic structure that produces a fractal toroidal moment. These have the phase singularities, which are able to accrue mass, and of course the loops are accruing mass, and the loop in the loops are accruing mass. And this turned out ultimately into a prediction about the actual structure that would be found in experiments. This apple shape, which is the sort of the inner boundary of the fractal toroidal magnetohydrodynamic geometry. And this was found in the Binger and Huang reactors. And inside there was the wheels within that wheel, and the wheels within the wheels within the overall apple structure. And very clearly, in a video called Flux Capacitor, I laid out the evidence that I'd recorded live in a microscope session that showed how this was able to capture matter, literally tearing matter from solid metal and pulling it into this core, cohering it, and then that matter would come out potentially as very different matter via a wormhole-like structure, or just spew out as stellar synthesis. And I said that in the original sort of experiments with aluminium ultra experiments, that there were gravity and anti-gravity waves. And essentially that experiment by Chizov showed that this was the case. Because we know we've got a mass and we know we're spinning it and it's going to be accelerating. It doesn't start from a stop. And sorry, it does start from a stop. It doesn't start from instant velocity. And as you build power into it, it's a resonant structure, so the intensity is growing. So you can imagine that the vorticity is growing, the intensity of the vorticity and the mass that's being rotated. And so that was shocking. And then I went into Fly Me to the Moon, and this caused a follower to send me a video, a couple of videos, they're actually part of the same presentation given by a person I'd actually recently, in one of these presentations, I actually showed a slide, which it turns out is from one of his presentations. But I'd been sent that slide. But this person, I hadn't, to the best of my knowledge, ever seen a presentation of his. But I did see him in an interview recently. I can't remember where, but he was just one of the interviewees in that. But I didn't know who he was or what his thing was. So when I saw the second part of this video, and basically this was sent to me on Wednesday, I felt a deep sense of responsibility. It shocked me. And I went about clipping out the relevant parts, which I'm going to show you shortly, and then we're going to discuss at the end. The implications are utterly phenomenal. They are obviously everything we've been talking about since 2017. So those people that have been here since then will probably get this immediately. My son asked me today, you know, Dad, are you okay? And I said, Jack, I've got to say to some people what I know to be true, and it's very difficult to know that it is true given the implications. And the world could have been a very different place, and the initiator for that might have been something that people are not going to like, and we'll talk about that at the end. But things are moving very fast now, and I said to Jack, I have no choice. I have to get this out as soon as possible. So what I've done is I've cleaned up, thank you very much, Avalon. I've cleaned up the audio. I've meticulously done the titles. I've got the names of every person that is referred to in this presentation. And I trust but verify, and in part of that, I actually went to look at a particular paper, and I was again shocked, because I believe this is the reason why Chizoff did the increasing acceleration experiment, or it was advised to him, or other experiments were advised to him by Samsonenko. Who is the head physicist at Moscow Friendship University, the second biggest university in Moscow. And I'm not saying it is, but when you see the presentation, you'll realize that the idea, and you see the paper, it has to be it. Which means that we have known how to do this for nearly 90 years. Nearly 90 years. Okay, so like I say, I'm going to play the video. I'm going to tidy up some slides and put some content in there whilst I'm doing that. And I will come back. It's about 17 minutes long. This is the Gods with a little g toolbox, as I've been saying all along. You're going to realize that all of the ancient stuff is relevant. The esoteric stuff, the occult stuff, which just means hidden, by the way. And we're at a time where there are people chomping at the bit to disclose what they know. And I think they're going to be also rans, because it will already be known to you. It will be known to you. You will know internally that this is true if you've been following this process. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's see if this works.
When they tested the bell on plants, plants were seen to decay within a matter of hours to weeks to a mere kind of brownish gray goo. And they did so without putrefaction. They just literally fell apart. When it was tested for the first time in the presence of humans, 7 of the scientists themselves that were involved with the project died. Subsequently, when tested in the presence of human beings, including concentration camp victims, but even some of the German technical personnel themselves, they would report having experiences of vertigo, of sensations on their skin, of little needles prickling their skin. They would have a metallic taste in their mouths. Some of the concentration camp victims from the camp of Gross Rosen that were involved with this project observed at night what they describe as barrel-like devices ascending above the tree lines where the bell was being tested, ascending above the tree lines with a kind of a pale blue glow, and then it would settle slowly back down under the tree line. So in other words, one of the observed effects of this device was precisely levitation, or if you prefer, anti-gravity. But please note something here. I'm stressing these effects because obviously it's deadly to humans. So we have here a prototype technology, and I'll show you in a moment why I think the Germans took it so far, but so far only. We have here a kind of a prototype technology in field propulsion, but it's not yet a practical flying craft, okay? Because they do not really know how to control these effects on organic matter. I believe that they were investigating hyperdimensional physics, and that their reasons or motivations for doing so were depending on 3 things. A theoretical component that was in the physics literature in Germany between the wars. An engineering component. I mean, you can have all the fancy theory that you want, but it may not be engineerable. So is this stuff engineerable? Can you make something practical with it? And then finally, interestingly enough, the esoteric component, or if you will, the occult. Now, the theoretical and purely scientific component comes from this fellow. His name is Dr. Theodor Franz Eduard Kaluza. Some of you may have heard Michio Kaku on Coast to Coast, and every now and then he'll be talking about the run-up to string theory, and he'll mention this fellow, Kaluza, or Kaluza-Klein. This is the fellow that formulates the first post-relativity unified field theory, unifying gravity and electromagnetism. And he does so in a theory that involves 5 dimensions, 1 of time, 4 of space. And that extra 4th spatial dimension is kind of a very tiny, curled up dimension that makes his geometry, the geometry of his theory, a cylinder. There's your stacked cylinders in the bell, okay? That's the theory. And incidentally, he's not Jewish. Very important. This man stays in Nazi Germany during the war, okay? The really important component is this man, the engineering component. This fellow is probably unknown to most of you. His name is Gabriel Krohn. He is Jewish. He was a Hungarian Jew. He was a genius. He came to this country sometime during the 1930s. But in 1935, Gabriel Krohn, he's an electrical engineer, publishes a paper that wins him a prize, the Montefiore Prize, at the University of Liège in Belgium. And in the paper, what he is arguing is that all of these unified field theories that begin to come out in Germany, beginning with Theodor Kaluza, up to and including the early theories of Albert Einstein, what he says is that these theories are the hyperdimensional theories that can explain electrical anomalies that we electrical engineers observe in large networked rotating electrical systems. Now, please understand that what he has just told you is that these theories are engineerable practically on the laboratory bench. And remember what Einstein's theory was, which is a component, relativity theory is a component of these unified field theories. When you say that these theories are practically engineerable on the laboratory bench with 1935 technology, you are saying that space-time itself is locally engineerable. And over the border in Nazi Germany, at that moment, publication of unified field theories inside the Third Reich stops. And the principal component of what he is observing as an engineer and saying, I can explain this with these hyperdimensional theories, is torsion. What's torsion? Well, for the mathematical out there, torsion, as you know, Einstein-Cartan torsion tensor, very small effect, usually negligible, you don't pay attention to it. There's another version called Ricci, dynamic torsion, but let's not argue mathematics. Let's get down to brass tacks. What is the concept? Think of yourself as holding an empty soda can, and you wring it like a dish rag. There's your counter-rotating metal drums, folks, in the bell. Opposite ringing motion. The can represents space-time. As you wring it, you fold and pleat the fabric of the can, and the ends of the can draw nearer to each other. That's torsion. That's those two counter-rotating drums, all that high-spin fuel in the bell. Now, what's the significance of what Krohn said? Well, I've just told you, but historically, this is the period that you see unified field theory publications disappear inside the Third Reich. Krohn himself ends up in the United States working for General Electric. I think you all know of a famous experiment on a ship involving electricity and rotating fields. This is the third element in Nazi thinking. If you can believe or imagine Heinrich Himmler having a Rasputin, this is the man. And actually that's his nickname, Himmler's Rasputin. This is Karl Maria Willigut, also known as Weistor, also known as Jarl Vidar. He's a one-star SS general. He is on Himmler's personal staff. And the man is Himmler's personal occult expert. This guy was a well-known European esotericist. Published many things, many articles about astrology, about ancient texts, about ancient, space races, and so on and so forth. But here is his basic cosmology. What do we have? We have two counter-rotating spirals. Now, what does he say about this? Listen carefully. If you take nothing away from my presentation or my books, take this away, please. Behind many metaphysical texts, if you know the requisite physics, most of those texts can be decoded in terms of modern physics. And I would include many ancient Neoplatonic and Hermetic texts in that category. Villegut says this about those counter-rotating spirals, and I'll read it, you can follow along here on the left-hand side. Primal law, above as below, below as above. Therefore, in the middle, there is a neutral force, idem est, generational field, from the two spirals. Each triply wound and connected by the generational plane, the middle field is developed to the world egg, unquote. Sounds kind of like an alchemist on LSD, okay? But look what it means. Decode it. The fabric of space-time, remember Crone as you listen to this, the fabric of space-time is not a mere void. Space-time is itself an information-creating field that creates precisely by creating systems of rotation within systems of rotation within systems of rotation. Many of you have probably heard Richard Hoagland. He'll tell you, what are the 3 laws of hyperdimensional physics? Rotation, rotation, rotation. And the symbol of all of this rotational physics has been staring us in the face since 1933, if not before. The corporate logo of the Nazi Party. And for those of you with a mathematical or physics background, now think of this as a vector diagram. Because what do you have? A subsystem of vectors, the outer arms of the swastika, a system of rotation, and the inner arms of the swastika representing a system of stress, rotation and stress, in the medium itself, ringing the can with counter rotation. So in other words, in a certain sense, given the fact that all of these top secret SS departments were set up almost at the inception of the Nazi regime, you have a nation state that was dedicated to the principle of exploring the modern scientific applications of ancient lore and making it practically engineerable. That's why you have all the explosion of this technology that you do, because they were thinking utterly outside the conventional box. So the purpose of the Bell Project then was, in my opinion, to explore the theory and technology of creation itself. In other words, of the godlike ability to manipulate or engineer the fabric of space-time itself by tapping into the dynamic characteristics of space-time, its rotational characteristics. Now please note the implication. Such a technology, if successful, would obviously lead, number one, to so-called free energy and a complete and utter end to a dependence on petrodollars, limited non-renewable energy resources, and, for the Nazis, Anglo-American corporate financial predators. Number two, obviously, given the testimony of people involved with the Bell Project in the camps that see this thing levitating, it leads to an anti-gravity field propulsion physics. But here's the real thing. This is what the Nazis are really after. Because its classification, again, is the only project in Nazi Germany to have the classification of Kriegsentscheidend, war decisive. Because if you weaponize this stuff, you have a potentially planet busting technology that would make a hydrogen bomb look like a firecracker. And this is the technology that Martin Bormann kept to himself, yeah? While he's giving away atomic bombs and rockets. I told you it was bad news. So what the bell was, is it's a prototype experimental technology. And please understand, a prototype experimental technology to test the aspects of a torsion-based hyperdimensional unified field theory designed deliberately to lead them to free energy technologies, to field propulsion technologies, and ultimately to the ultimate planet-busting energy weapon whose destructive potential we can only imagine. Were they successful? Did they achieve their goal? Again, to a certain extent, yes. We've seen the effects on plants. We've seen the effects on humans. We've seen the observed levitation. And all those effects are commensurate and condign exactly to the type of physics I've been describing to you, this extreme shearing effect in the physical medium. And incidentally, the final clincher is that one of the Bell's project code names was Project Chronos, Project Time.
Boom! So what do you think of that? So I went through and found everything in there. And I think the first thing we'll just talk about is the world egg. Here is Grok's summary of what the world egg is. I will read it in my best German accent. The world egg. The world egg, also known as the cosmic egg or mundane egg, is a profound esoteric symbol found across ancient cosmogonies and mystical traditions. It represents the primordial vessel of creation, a self-contained, undifferentiated unity encompassing all potentiality, from which the manifesting universe emerges through a process of hatching, splitting, or unfolding. Esoterically, it embodies the mystery of divine genesis, the enclosed seed of existence radiating life form from its center, often likened to the world's navel omphalos, where chaos is gives way to order duality, such as heaven and earth, spirit and matter, or the eternal cycle of birth, death, and regeneration. This motif draws from the egg's natural properties as a nurturing enclosure that births life from apparent nothingness, symbolizing immortality, fertility, renewal, and the alchemical transformation of potential into form. Well, I am sorry for the German speakers in the house who do not like me mocking the accent, but I think credit where credit is due. Obviously, there were some experts between the wars who were very seriously considering the ability to modify gravity, space, and time. Yeah. So what you're looking at here basically is what goes on in the cores of these exotic vacuum objects, these wheel within wheel within wheel structures. They are the cosmic egg. They are the omphalos. I literally went to the center of the earth as per Zeus, where he sent an eagle one way and he sent an eagle the other way. And that is Delphi in the Greek peninsula. And that is where I bought this shirt. which says in Greek, the only thing I know is that I don't know anything. There we go. Yeah. So that there is basically the core that you get in the center of this structure. The core that you get in the center of the structure. And of course, I want to show you the second shock. I actually went and looked at the Gabriel Cron paper, but here is his award, the 1935 Montfiore Award, Gabriel Cron. Montfiore Award for 1935 presented. The triennial award, so I guess that's every 3 years, of the George Montefiore Foundation of the University of Leeds, that's Liège in Belgium. Leeds is the translation from Belgium, has been presented for 1935 to Gabriel Cron, General Engineering Department, General Electric Company. I can't say that, so the New Yorkers in the house, Corky, how do I say Schnicketaddy, New York? This prize of 10,000 Belgian francs, no less, was awarded for the best original work on scientific advancement and progress in technical application in any field of electricity submitted to the Foundation for consideration. The award to Mr. Cron was based upon a memoir which he entitled Non-Riemannian Dynamics of Rotating Electrical Machinery, and submitted some time ago. Announcement of the availability of this prize was given in Electrical Engineering for June 1934, page 1026. So, for more than 90 years, this has been an actionable, practical approach to gravity modification. The first prize in this competition, which is international in scope, has not been awarded to an American since 1923, when it was won by Dr. J.B. Whitehead, life member and junior past president, Dean of the School of Engineering, Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore. Okay? So, let's have a look at the paper. I've got the paper. I will give you a link to download the paper, and you can look at it at your leisure. If it'll allow me to move it onto the page, that would be good. Okay, all right, here. So here it is, non-Riemannian dynamics of rotating electrical machinery. It is shown that charges through terminals, brushes, taps, etc. of the innumerable types of rotating electrical machines, except the alternator, are not true Lagrangian coordinates, and the usual form of the equation of motion of Lagrange, this one, as interpreted by Maxwell for closed electric circuits moving in a magnetic field, is not valid for them. Neither is the equation of voltage derived from the former equation by ignoring the geometrical variables, this one. Since the coordinate axes are not connected to the moving conductors, the generalized form of the equation of motion valid for all electrical machinery and in general for non-holonomic dynamical systems has been given by the Boltzmann and Hamel as this, which includes as a special case the usual form. The generalized form of the equation of voltage. At this point I was going, I'm not sure this is why I should be looking at this. I'm not sure it's why I should be looking at this. So I did a quick skim read through, and certain things revealed themselves. I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights here. Tensor symbolism, and is found that the usual explicit form of the equation of motion for holonomic dynamical systems, that is this, is also valid for quasi-holonomic dynamical systems, a special case of non-holonomic dynamical systems in which gravitational and electromagnetic energies coexist. Provided the Christoffel symbol of Riemannian geometry is replaced by the generalized asymmetrical Christoffel symbol of non-Riemannian geometry. subject to the restriction that the covariant derivative of the metric tensor is 0. In other words, it is shown the explicit form of generalized equation in motion. Okay, so we have a special case of non-holonomical dynamical systems in which gravitational and electromagnetic energies coexist. Coexist, right? That's page 104, 106. These forms show that the equations of rotating machinery are identical with those of stationary networks of ordinary differentiation if ordinary differentiation is replaced by absolute differentiation. Or in other words, which actually is the name of the song that I sang last week, not the Fly Me to the Moon, Fly Me to the Moon. The actual name, the original name of the song in 1954 was In Other Words. Or, in other words, the appearance of the gravitational mass of the rotor during acceleration in a purely electromagnetic system changes all ordinary derivatives into absolute derivatives. It gets better. Page 109. Set of linear differential equations, however, it has been immensely improved in the hands of relativists. In fact, and he always emphasizes the most important points in italics, the whole mathematical apparatus of non-Riemannian space is the creation of relativists during the last 15 years in their attempts, so far futile, to unify the differential equations of gravitational and electromagnetic fields. It is interesting that rotating electrical machinery, whose differential equations are those of a non-Riemannian space, are non-holonomic dynamical systems in which also gravitational and electromagnetic energies coexist. As an important connection between the relativistic dynamical treatment and the present classical dynamical treatment of the unified theory of gravitational and electromagnetic systems is that both treatments, in both treatments, the non-Riemannian space is subject to the restriction that the covariant derivative of the metric tensor is 0. It's all about torsion. Okay, now here we go. Throughout the paper, emphasis has been laid upon physical interpretation of all abstract concepts introduced from the absolute calculus and of the phenomena taking place inside of all machines during acceleration and hunting. During acceleration and hunting. Clarify that again. This is physical interpretation of the abstract concepts of the phenomena taking place inside all machines during acceleration and hunting. Boom! When I read that, I thought whoever is discussing or coming up with or Chisov himself, this, in my view, would be where the inspiration comes from to do an experiment using an accelerating, rotating body to change, essentially by a gravitational manipulation, the constants in the medium such that light diffracts. During acceleration. In every rotating machine, the following n-dimensional space waves or vectors can be assumed to exist at any one instant during acceleration. A current density and velocity vector, this one, a vector, this one, which includes the flux linkage vector, this one, magnetic vector potential, and the angular momentum, this one. The rotor flux density vector, this, although the expression stands for dyadic, still the dyadic can be represented physically by a space vector. This calls attention to the fact that two kinds of physical vectors can be differentiated, polar and axial vectors. The important thing here is, guys, that 2 weeks ago I shared a presentation with you that supported my assertion in the early 2020s that inside Lena systems there was gravitational and anti-gravitational waves. That's most clearly represented in the yin-yang structures. That is the black hole yin and the white hole yang, the one that gives light. It's either one or the other. you pick your difference. There's a 50% chance of being right. In the yin-yang structures, the yin appears to be capturing matter and condensing it denser and denser, and the yang appears to be disassembling matter and throwing it out. It's kind of counterintuitive. Okay, and for disassembling matter, you would expect there to be an anti-gravity component. The gravity component would be the gravity version of that. And if you are wanting to make, for instance, neutrons out of electrons, protons in your matter, you would need a certain type of neutrino coming in. And so if you've got a proton and an electron, you need an anti-neutrino coming in, and that will make a neutron. That's making more dense material. Okay, that's kind of your yin cohering, and your yang is taking a neutrino and it is disassembling the matter and producing protons and electrons. Okay, and ultimately completely disassembling matter. So this is the power to both cohere or decohere matter, to make condensed matter and to make rarefied energy. And those are what are going on. So it was obvious to me when you saw that yin-yang in those simple experiments that a 3-year-old can learn to do in 7 minutes with about $35 of equipment, and he works 100% of the time, that demonstration has a vortex going one way and a counter vortex, and that those themselves have vortices within them. And we showed that right from the get-go from actual German studies of bubble structures in a lower frequency in the 20 kilohertz range of ultrasound in water. And so you can do this with two-sided structure, and we've shown this many, many times before. This is from that Metin R bubble structures in acoustic cavitation, Drittes Physikalisches Institute, University Göttingen, Germany. Probably said all that wrong. And you can see the material being pulled in from the open space, but also going around in a loop. Being pulled in from the open space, but also going around in a loop. And this is very, very important to something that I'm going to talk about later. Here you can see the process going on and the vector through the center. In the Lake Neil Crichton Gold's work, you can see the structure at the next fractal level up in this water spout, and you can see this in the Henk plasma system. Okay, we showed this, and I connected this Zeus to the Thunderbolt, which is effectively equivalent to the Vajra. You can see here on this 234 BC coin that I've got here on the top left. And then I talked about the swastika many, many times, and the salvastika. Obviously, the swastika is projection of power. This is the yang, this is disassembling matter. The salvastika is the yin, this is cohering, this is the nurturing force, this is assembling dense matter. And it symbolizes lightning bolts. Ball lightning represents the thunder god and the king of the gods, such as Indra in the Vedic Hinduism, Zeus in the ancient Greek religion, Jupiter in the ancient Roman religion, and Thor in the ancient Germanic religion. Thor in the ancient Germanic religion. And remember, the guy that was helping the Nazis to produce this technology was called White Thor. White Thor. Okay? Right. And I asked that we should reclaim ball lightning, which is a manifestation of this for humanity. Prometheus, a Titan initially allied with Zeus during the Titanomachy, helped him overthrow Kronos. Lovely name, Kronos, isn't it? This is a different way of spelling Chronos, time. However, their relationship soured when Prometheus tricked Zeus into accepting bones and fat as sacrifices, keeping the best meat for humans. Angered, Zeus hid fire from humanity. Defying Zeus, Prometheus stole fire from the Mount Olympus and returned it to mankind, empowering them with knowledge and survival skills. In retaliation, Zeus punished Prometheus by chaining him to a rock where an eagle would eat his liver daily, which would regenerate each night. So, permanent pain. According to some versions of Greek mythology, Prometheus fashioned the first humans out of clay and breathed life into them. Anyway, so this is in old Dongolia. This is a part of Sudan, which is north of Egypt. And these are pillar capitals that were there from this old capital. And which capitals in an old capital. And you can see the, what is it, the Qatar cross here that was adopted in the Knights Templar in France, and also you can see it in the underground Templar excavations in Vienna in Austria, which I visited. So this is the Qatar cross. You can see here the Christian cross, and here you can see the Maltese cross, which is the symbol of God-controlled power according to the Sumerians. And of course, the Maltese cross was also on the Nazi flag. It was also on the Nazi flag in the top left-hand corner or top right-hand corner. Okay, and I worked out, this is the two-order structure, and this has at least one wheel, and within that wheel, it has two wheels, and within those two wheels, you have two wheels. So that there is a wheel within this wheel, and that wheel is a wheel inside this wheel. That is a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. Okay, the four-tour structure is this one. This is the 4-4-tour structure, and this is equivalent to the Jerusalem cross. The Jerusalem cross, and that's going to become very important. The geometry of the overall structure is complete with golden ratios. Every aspect of this is golden ratios, and every 90-degree change in the structure. Thank you to Tony Gimoni for this particular one. And so I'm going to talk about the implications later, but I'm going to go and just pull up another presentation where I will show, it was in my teleportation presentation from ICCF, from Cosmic Summit this year. And I shared again the a little bit of crazy 2, or a little bit of crazy, original little bit of crazy with our Maltese cross, which is actually from the first order of electrical engineers from the mid-1880s. From the mid-1880s, this was the symbol assigned to the first order of electrical engineers fraternity, which was the very, became the largest engineering society in the world. This is not on Wikipedia, and I've discussed where I got this from in the past. But I showed that this so-called sun-worshipping cult here, where they had these 4 yin-yangs going around a center point, that I said this was effectively a swastika. This is from 700 BC. In so-called an Iron Age solar symbol, because they believed that this was how the sun worked. Of course, they were absolutely right. Those 700 BC people, they were absolutely right. And of course, this is my photo of the Shamshad Adad, Syrian 814 BC symbol of God-controlled power. And when I align this over the 4-tour, the swastika structure, that is the structure that they have is exactly correct for the interaction of the substructures. Okay, absolutely exact. And I decoded the Rotus opera tenet Arepo Sata as a result, saying the divine creator from Alpha repeatedly to Omega comprehends and works with whirlwinds. I then did an ode, a little bit of crazy too, after I visited Malta. And I believe that this particular stone that you're seeing here, which is in Haltarkshin, or one, no, yeah, it's from Haltarkshin. This is, I think, older, in my view, than Göbekli Tepe. The aging of these stones was done by just looking around the ground, because these things weren't deliberately buried. They just accumulated detritus over time. I think these are as old, if not older, than Göbekli Tepe, which would put them around the sort of 11,700, 12,000 years ago. So it's about order, and I showed that these structures here, this is one of the oldest temples at Haga Kim, which according to mainstream science is 5,600 years ago, but I think it's much older. And I showed that the magnetohydrodynamic structure, complete with the two tails that come out on the golden ratio line, is exactly and precisely represented in these structures. And I showed that, you know, there's a chi cohering structure in here, and you can go and look at this presentation. But the important thing is about the chaos. And the chaos here, this is from Haltarkshin, but I think there were much bigger temples and more important temples on Valletta, which is where the Knights Hospitalier and the Knights of Malta settled. And I guess when they built all those Christian cathedrals in the Valletta city, they built on old temples. Okay, this again is from the 3rd century BC, from Attica, which is the southeastern part of mainland Greece. And so where I think that he's got it wrong with the symbol of auspicious symbol is that he's thinking it's just twisting like this. It's not, in my view. The science predicts that it's twisting like this. That is what you see in water, forming instantaneously, and it produces this loop like that. It's not twisting like that, it's twisting like that, okay? And that twists both up and round. It's multi-axis shear, okay? And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. I think you can do a lot by spinning things, but it only gets you so far. And yeah. So I talked about the 33rd jewel of the Masonic Order. And this was actually developed in the South Carolina on the May the 31st, 1801. It says, order from chaos, which is God and my right to do. And it says wisdom. So that is the thing. This is what you get when you are a top Mason. But it is, the eagle, of course, here is very, very important, because we go back to Delphi, where I got this t-shirt. The only thing I know is that I don't know anything. And in Delphi, the eagle, the Zeus was the bearer of the thunderbolt, ball lightning. When he came to Earth, he sought its center. To do this, he realized two eagles from its released two eagles from its opposite ends. They soared, meeting above Delphi, marking the sacred spot. I think these eagles were actually anti-gravity craft. I've said that before. Zeus declared its navel of the world, establishing an oracle there, where mortals sought divine wisdom, guided by the cosmic balance of divine experiment. Okay, and it's been used in very many places, of course. And I showed that it's on the 32nd jewel, okay, but it's also in the Byzantine and Hittites. And this is the 32nd jewel here, which also has a version of the Jerusalem cross. And this is the Scottish Rite Grand Council jewel here, which is the Jerusalem cross, and it very specifically has the Jerusalem cross in the center here, which is a 4-tor structure represented with 4 small substructures in there. So that is showing a wheel within a wheel within a wheel, okay? And it produces 4 fleur-de-lis, okay? It's exactly showing the process there. Of course, this Jerusalem cross is, you can see the exact representation here. And of course, the Christ center is in the center. That is the point of creation, of gnosis, of understanding, okay? And it is the Scottish Rites version of this jewel, which I believe was modified to incorporate the learning. So you have these clover-shaped vortices with the 3-order part structure, the chaos coming in, and they are pointing around in a circle like this to give you flight, to give you that, in my view, anti-gravity. Okay, so from the Haltarkshin temples, which I believe that they would have observed much older ones for when they were building the cathedrals in Valletta. you have here, firstly, exactly and precisely the chaos. This is a symbol of chaos. This is a symbol of chaos. This chaos symbols in the Heltarkshin temple are out of the sanctum, are out of the point of peace, are out of the most holy of holies. Okay? Here you have the chaos coming into the vortex. Okay? So you have a vortex and an anti-vortex, and this is a vortex, but it is not in this plane, but it's representative of the third vortex. So your vortex, and these two create a vortex that comes up through the center, okay? And it comes up through the center, and then one goes one side and a bit goes the other side, but one is in front and one is behind because the whole thing is spinning, okay? So so basically this is Laus Deus Custos Arcani, praise be to God, guardian of the secret. So praise be to God, guardian of the secret. And spesmea in Deo est, my hope is in God. Spesmea in Deo est. So this shows exactly what you need to do. And this, by the way, is precisely what is going on in the wind hex. Okay, this is what is going on in the wind hex. Now you only need technically 2 here, but if you have 2, it would wobble, right? It's not ideal. And also, it does pull in etheric energy, but what you want to do is to minimize the amount of reach of that etheric pulling. And we showed categorically in our experiments that we can do that by having 3 or 4. It reduces the amount of pulling in from the far field. And that's what you want to do if you want to have a safe system doing the work. Let me see if I can show you some examples along that line. Maybe I have it in here. No, I don't. Okay. All right. So what are my thoughts on this? Well, let me see if I can find this. Where did I put my thoughts? Okay. Implications. Where did I put my implications? I don't know where I put my implications. Where did I do that? Oh dear. Give me a sec. Here's my implications. There. Like I say, I'm going to share all of the links that I got out of the thing. I'll actually make a version of that video standalone with all of the QR codes necessary to get to the information on there. Now somewhere I put my thought here. So I have to thank the YouTuber who sent me that link. Okay. Oh dear. I don't know where did I put my. I'll take your questions and then maybe we can do a conclusion. So what do you think about that? Honestly, what do you think about that? Basically, we've shown in experiment we can do gravity and anti-gravity waves. It has been proven categorically, in my view, by Vladimir Alexandra Chizov, that accelerating a rotating body will... so I can do the conclusions off the top of my head. So, no, I really want to get them ordered. Let me see if I can find it. Oh dear. Where's it gone? Maybe it's because I'm not showing my speaker notes view. There we go. Okay, down the bottom. There we go. So, what Chizov showed is that increasing acceleration causes a change in the medium gradient, the ether gradient, and this has the action of merging or causing a effectively a gravitational vector. Okay, and using this, he was able to demonstrate the movement of other objects, the bending of light, both up and down, and forward and back with objects, and also forward and back with water in a capillary tube. So I don't know where he got that from, but what we know is that in this 1934 work here by Crone, you are having acceleration changing vector potentials and the important stuff. The phenomena taking place inside of all machines during acceleration. Okay. So the implications therefore are that whether he got this or not, this is further verification that what he said was true, and what I have suggested is true, and that it is gravity and anti-gravity that's being produced in these systems. This, in my view, the reason it stops is because what's happening with Chisholm in his angle grinder, he's only able to accelerate it up to 10,000 RPM. Okay, that's the speed. So you're only getting the change as you're speeding up. That is a mass that is accelerating in a rotating fashion. So you've got a torsion vector going on there. And of course, within that, you have electrons as well. Okay, and they've got their own spin. Whatever's in the matter has got its spin depending on the elements in there. So I believe that in the case of Chisholm's work, and what he demonstrates is what he's able to do is limited by the top speed. That is to say, he can only accelerate for a certain amount of time and then he hits a top speed. And so mechanical processes only get you so far. Okay? You can only get something spinning up to a certain speed. Now, to try this, your logical thing was, well, if I don't want things flying off, I'm going to have something very powerful and rigid to maintain it in the same location. Or what I can do is I can make the heaviest fluid I possibly can and spin that. Okay? And that will get you the most mass orbital rotations that you can possibly achieve. And this is why I think the SS and the people involved with the project, which Joseph P. Farrell, Dr. Joseph P. Farrell goes into, they chose mercury, and mercury is able to perform an amalgam or to dissolve a lot of other atoms in it. And that is why I think they were using tungsten, if there was tungsten involved. I don't know, right? These are things that are actually not so relevant to what we're doing, okay? But tungsten obviously is extremely heavy, okay? And he said it was to do with some energy aspects. I don't know. But essentially, it doesn't matter what is in there. You can only accelerate that up to a certain speed, and you're going to hit a limit. As fluid as mercury is, it's going to have a friction, it's going to have a shear response, and so forth, okay? Now, that's why you would start to think of using... well, gallium is a fluid just around body temperature. However, it's much, much lighter than mercury, and tungsten is much, much lighter. Okay? So what you would naturally then do is to try and do it electromagnetically. Now, I believe that Tesla, who, if you recall, Tesla actually studied in Prague. He actually studied in Prague. And so did Richter, who we talked about in one of the recent presentations, who is actually referred to by Joseph P. Farrell in this presentation I shared today. He studied in Prague, at the German university in Prague. So I think there was a lot of cross-pollination going on there. But here's the thing. Tesla specifically said in Sun, New York in 1911 that the application of this principle would allow basically for a UFO any size go very fast in any weather conditions and would have no screw propellers or control surfaces of any kind hitherto seen. You know, basically this is describing a UFO. Okay, so that's 1911. Okay, and I believe that his homopolar generator is 1889 patent, which it turns out, I found out, Science Applications International Corporation in 1993, year after the end of the Cold War, decided to try and successfully repatent that patent of Tesla from 1889. But they excluded in that patent the counter-rotating version. Of course, the magnetic flux is going through opposite to the or in relation to the rotation. So I don't know why. I'm very suspect about that. So we are going to do counter rotation with our things in here in various configurations and see if we have any time effects. That's what I want to see. We're not just looking at laser, but I want to see if we got time. And I think with having a little wheel within a wheel, but with these kind of motors, you could end up with easily creating a wheel within a wheel within a wheel structure. Relatively easy, and you can leave it spinning for a while. Now, why is it important? Well, I think if they were just spinning two things, they're not got the wheel within wheel within a wheel. They might be relying on this intrinsic spin inside the nuclei or electrons or whatever, but they've not got the physical thing. When you have a purely electrical system, which is what I believe that the Philadelphia experiment was, that is also limited, and it's also very big. They're not ideal. So I think what people were finding and the plants dying is that the plants were actually inside the bubble. And inside that bubble that gets created at the non-radiating boundary, all bets are off. And I have argued for about a half a decade, probably more. In fact, at least since early 2018, January 2018, that everything inside the structure is at risk of turning to mush. So to hear him say that the plants in there sometimes in days turn to grey goo without any putrefaction. That is, they say they're not rotting, there's no mold in there, they just turn to goo. We know that this overexcitement of, for instance, water can turn water to water gas and cause cell destruction, let's say. And so these are all entirely consistent observations with what we have physically observed in experiment and what nature shows us. And so I think there's a problem where they had to create something very big, power it with a lot of energy to see the gross effect. But of course, that was creating a very, very large sphere in which things are not going to go nice for people and objects within that sphere. So I believe that the Bell was their best effort at getting a lot of mass accelerating to a very high degree, which creates the flux of relic neutrinos, in my view, that enable the flux capacitor. Okay? The flux capacitor. And if they had actually achieved a wheel within a wheel within a wheel structure, thank you very much, Phil Dubois, that's very kind. Yes, sodium has been shown in a recent paper in I'm wanting to, in Armenia, in a paper that referenced our cavitation paper in Nature Scientific Reports to do transmutation. So there is a peer-reviewed paper that references our work where they've shown sodium do transmutation. Literally everything can be transmuted, Phil, everything. Anyway, so I think that the other problem is when you have just two spinning things, you do not have the wheel within a wheel structure that stabilizes the oval structure. And ideally, you want a 4-4 structure, and then you get a very tight structure. So The wheel within a wheel within a wheel structure in plasma or in water cavitation allows for a very stable structure, whilst the energy is being provided and it is allowing the thing to feed and self-organize. We can see this precisely. We can see this absolutely exactly under the microscope or even under a normal optical camera. We can see it. We can actually see the process, and when we turn off the sound, it survives for a little time and then it comes off. Now, when you do it with pulsed electrical discharges, like in the work of Matsumoto that I showed 2 weeks ago, and in the work of, last week rather, and in the work of the Moscow Nuclear Physics Institute, where you have a discharge 2000 volts going through 200 volt bias, it produces these structures which exist for 2 days. Why? Because the self-dynamic magnetohydrodynamic shear forces build a wheel within a wheel within a wheel minimal structure, and those structures are able, once they are got enough, in my view, electron, quark, gluon, plasma in there, they produce a core that is able to feed itself. Now, why is that important? As the thing is energized, it spins faster. As it spins faster and the self-organization stabilizes the structure, it can continue to build faster. Why does it continue to build faster? Because it has phase singularities in it. The phase singularities are where matter is cohered. As it's cohered, it increases in the space-time localized mass, which increases the spin of the whole structure. So it accelerates, but it continues to accelerate, and it continues to accelerate, and it continues to accelerate. It continues to get mass, it continues to get mass, it continues to get mass, and then boom! It hits the Schwinger limit. So in a small part of space-time, in the phase singularities, you get a thing that does not need you to confine it, because the thing is self-confining, and it can continue to pull in matter. So the thing that is causing the ether gradient is limited in the Nazi bell and in other experiments by the sheer kludgy blockiness of it. But nature is so beautiful. It is so amazing that it self-organizes as a structure that if you feed it for just enough time, it will take over the reins. It'll say, thank you very much, I've got it from here. And if you stop feeding it, at that point, as is shown by Takaaki Matsumoto in the 1990s, and was shown in a peer-reviewed paper in 2019 by the Moscow Nuclear Physics Institute under Bogdanovich et al., and as was shown in the early 2000s in the exploding metal foils of Leonid Roitzkiev, and I could give other examples. These things will self-sustain for about 2 days without you giving anything to it, without you giving anything more to it. You create a little black hole with a little group of little black holes around them. They have gone past the limit at which they continue to pull in the matter over which light travels faster than the light can escape, which gives you a permanent ether gradient, not one that settles down when you can't accelerate it anymore. Okay? And that, my friends, is, in my view, the certain key to propulsion, anti-gravity, completely explained. And if we have that, we have unlimited energy, because you just need one propulsion thing on a crank and it just goes round and round and round, and you have a normal dynamo and it generates power. That's it. Unlimited energy wherever you want in the universe. You just use a standard generator and put the thing on the crank and it just goes round and round and round. That's it. Done. As simple as that. Free energy. Moreover, it will create a change in the rate of time locally to these structures. What does that enable you to do? That enables you to create local time zones. Local time zones. That is to say, where time literally moves slower relative to the outside world. Literally moves slower. So you could say, I've got a great idea, guys. I want you to build these things. They're kind of like pyramidal shape, and they've got to have all these blocks and stuff. And I'll come back in 1,000 years and see how you're getting on. And you go away and you park yourself. I've talked about this many, many times, but now you're literally seeing the mechanism by which you can do it. And it is the sacred geometry. It is the yin yang. It is the fleur de lis. It is the Maltese cross. It is the swastika and the salvastika. It is all of the great symbols of power. They knew. They knew. And so did White Thor. So did White Thor, the occult magician of the Third Reich. They had worked out what the Holy Grail was. This is the Holy Grail. So, essentially, once you spin these things up in an exotic vacuum object or an energy soliton, or all of the names that have been given to it over the years, it will feed itself in ordinary space for about 2 days in our space-time. It can get enough from its local environment, or it gets enough in when it's triggered, it's probably got enough contained within it to keep it going for 2 days. If you keep feeding it, it's going to keep going. So, I think they got quite far. And I think that those scientists who were brought over to America and or went to Argentina or wherever, Russia, they worked in programs and they developed the technology to a functional way. It stands to reason that if you could create a self-excited sphere which had a gravitational flux through it, that you would not want to be anywhere near that. So you would create a triangular craft. Why would you create a triangular craft? Because it's very hard to create a stable thing when you only have 2. 3 is what you need. You need 3. You need 3 because that defines a plane. You have 3 legs on a stool because it always stands upright, right? It doesn't wobble. There's no goo like you get on a 4-legged chair, right? Whatever the surface is. 3 is the natural thing, and then you would have the people in a different part of the structure. And when you want to change the whole structure into a sphere, you would rotate those gravitational vectors. So as Archibald Wheeler says, John Archibald Wheeler in the 1990s, they link together. But you would run that at a slightly less intense level because you just want to vector the whole thing out and not interfere with the atmosphere. So, I think that's it really. You got unlimited propulsion, unlimited energy, simple experiments to show the transmutation, simple experiments. I mean, Matsumoto's presentation that I showed you last week, early 1990s, showed 40% unity, over unity, very simple experiment. An over unity experiment that proved cold fusion in the early 1990s. Okay, it's been there in the literature for you to see. Okay, so I'll just see if you've got any questions here. So someone says, triangle or round, I think you need symmetry. You absolutely need symmetry, and you can see it precisely in our experimental data. Remember, I didn't come to any of this occult stuff until I'd seen things under the microscope. I didn't think about ancient civilizations being relevant to this until I'd physically seen things that could only be explained by this symbology. And then you go, these old people, these old societies, they really knew what was going on. Or someone did before them. I didn't try the grinder experiment, Paul, who missed the first hour. It's a great shame you missed the first hour because literally we've proven that the last... well, all of this has been worthwhile because a 1934 paper must be, or the science behind it must be the instigation of the Chizoff experiment, which showed by spinning that you can have anti-gravity effects, and this is what's going on in the cavitation experiments. There it was. It was there in 1934 in Cron's paper. So, Bob, does this scale up, in your opinion, to macro, i.e. galactic formation? Absolutely. Yes, this is scale invariant. The electrogalvanic experiments I saw videos of always had the symmetry. I missed all but the last 10 minutes. Hope to watch the video. Okay. Yes, William Schwand, there is more of us that know now than there have been in the last at least 200 years. Yes. The point is right now, you, if you've been following this since, let's say, 2017, you have seen each step in the journey as it occurred. Each step in the journey as it occurred. Those mid-2017 sprites videos where I first saw the hydrodynamics going on in Suhas Rauka's lab. Okay? The implications of what we were seeing on the lion experiment in late 2017. The realization that this was ball lightning shared with me in 2016, but by the start of 2017, realizing it was ball lightning that was involved. And then realizing that the Hutchison effect is all part of the same thing and that Ken Shoulder's work was all part of the same thing. Realizing that it is a fractal structure, that it has this very specific thing generated out of it in electrodynamics, which has only ever been even considered in the West in the fractal way in mainstream scientific peer-reviewed papers at the top tier in the early to mid 2010s. Yet it was discovered in Dubna in the Nuclear Research City in 1965 and published in Dubovic's paper in 1967. This is the key to hypersonics, ultrasonics, let's call it, faster than light, teleportation, all of the above. The God's toolbox is all of it. You must be aware that what we are looking at right now can kill and maim. Now, I said I was going to say something potentially controversial, and you can judge for yourself. What the last 2 days made me realize is the shocking reality that had Germany won the Second World War, we might have had unlimited free energy and anti-gravity on this planet in regular use for at least 50 years. Because once you show a nuclear bomb, everyone starts knowing it's possible. Everyone knows it's possible. If they had shown anti-gravity craft, time distortion, and unlimited energy, 100% certainly everyone have realized that it's possible. Do you understand? And then you have to ask, were we really the winners of the war? Were we really did we really win the war? Did the Allies win the war? Ken, as I understand it, the Germans were looking to these wonder weapons to win the war, but they didn't get them finished. Clearly they didn't get them finished. They were just turning plants and people to mush, right? But had they got them finished, they used everything else that was magical, that they had. Why would they not use that if it was decisive? And once you show your hand, everyone knows it's possible. Everyone knows that that is the thing. That's what happened by dropping those bombs. We all win. Yes, Young does live. We all win. But now we can get out of this mental stupor that we have been living in, where we've been puppets on strings, been told things are not possible, been told it's all aliens that are, 1,000 years in there or 1,000,000 years into the future. We're never going to be able to understand that television. Never understand it. No, just go back to your little boxes. And this is where you will be allowed to get your energy from. This is where you'll be able to get your energy from. This is how you will be able to travel. As long as you've taken the mark, so we know where you are at every single point in time. Maybe we'll consider releasing some of this stuff so we can turn you off because you've got a chip in your head. A silicon chip inside a head is switched to overload. And nobody's gonna go to school today. They're gonna make them stay at home. And daddy doesn't understand it. They always say she was good as gold. Because they can see no reasons why. Because there are no reasons. What reasons do you need to be shown? Oh, tell me why I don't like Mondays. Tell me why I don't like Mondays. Tell me why I don't like Mondays. I wanna shoot. Ooh. The whole day down. Don't let them put a chip in your side of your head. Don't let them put a chip in your grandchildren's head. Do not let them do that. Do not. He was a brilliant creative. Creatives are very, very good, if not the best remote viewers. I think it was a warning from the future. Do not let them put a chip in your child's or your grandchild's head ever. For any reason. It should not be allowed. We can get off this rock. How does that make you feel? It's freaking awesome, right? We can get off this rock. The universe is our oyster. The universe is our oyster. Project Time. Funny name for spinning some metal, right? When you know you have a technology that can bore holes instantaneously, when you know it is the technology that enables communications directly with the brain through the ether, as long as you have the cryptographic key, which is your DNA, or you have enough of your family stupid enough to hand over their DNA, then you can manipulate conscious entities over any distance at any point. You can read and write into their Akashic record. When you know that you have a technology that allows you to go instantly into orbit, what would you actually do? What would you actually do if you wanted to roll that technology out? I don't know. What if you wanted to change the prime mover from a gas guzzling system into a electrical powered system? Well, you would develop a whole raft of technologies based on an electric motor, okay? But then at some point, you would either switch out the generation at source using this technology, or you would put a little device in the car that provides the ongoing charging within the car for many lifetime cycles of the vehicles. You probably wouldn't want to let the general plebeians access to anti-gravity. You wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want that. But you would make a situation where they don't own a thing. They do not own a thing, but they're going to be very happy. They're going to be very happy because the car always works, never runs out of fuel. You pay your tax for using it in your modern day serfdom. You pay your tax for using your washing machine that comes with all the power it'll ever need. You pay your tax for using your computer, which comes with all the power it ever needs. You don't own it. You don't own the software. You don't own the hardware. But don't worry, we'll take care of it. Oh, it's very, very expensive energy to process that thing. Where are we going to get the energy from? I do not know. Yeah. If anyone's got any quick questions, otherwise I'm just going to do a quick summary. As I say, I will put out a clean version of that video with the subtitles that I've done, but with all of the references as easy links, sometimes with QR codes. So Nawal Sejari says, I have a question about local time dilation. Is this a programmed process or is it a measured through seismic gravity wells in the area? There will be time dilation or changes on various places of the Earth, but I think you'll be able to engineer a device that will have a subtle change in a particular area of space-time. Right the way up to a point where, as I've argued before, if you stop electrons from being electrons, that is to say, doing any electrical behavior, then you can literally freeze time. It's stasis without freezing someone. It's stasis because you stop the electrons from being electrons. Thank you very much, Captain Brown. Then you stop time. Okay, thank you, Captain. He says, Bob, I'd really like to meet you one day. I respect and need to discuss the coherent entropic torsion with you as it dovetails with what you're saying and potentially solves dark matter and Hubble tension. Yeah, well, you're going to see, one of the reasons I also had to put this out now is I'm actually going to put out a presentation, the latest work of Alexander Parkhomov on Sunday, which it tangentially supports what we're observing here and discussing here. Oh, I like it, Jalapeno. He says Friday. Very good. I like it. So I want to thank those people who very graciously donated today. Silver Stargazer, thank you for trying to send me a message that I was muted. The epic failure at the start of this presentation. Thank you, Nathan Fawn, for that $2. Also trying to tell me about the sound. DIY Projects with the Channel says, thank you for the $10 trying to tell me about the sound. Thank you also about Nathan Ford for the $2 for the sound. I should not speak more often. It's obviously much better for the project. Nathan Ford tried again with another $2 Bob sound. And then Avalon Connected, thank you for that £10. Thank you, Pamela, for that €10. Very kind regular donator there. Thank you. Thank you, Phil Dubois. Great to see you here for that $19.99. And thank you again, Captain Brown 86 for that £19.99. Very, very much appreciated. So, yeah. As you know, those that have followed this process for a long time, I knew from my early pre-10 years in a recurring dream that I would have to do something in my 40s and I wouldn't get paid much for it or anything at all. People would call me crazy. It would be a burden. I really felt that these last 2 days. I felt it a couple of times in the last few years. The worst was back in late February 2017 before I had to go and speak on the invite Mahadev and Srinivasan. It was nice to have my son there to recognize what I was going through today. And I will publish the prior statements that I made that you missed because it was muted. But I think you guys can see that we've all been living a lie. In 2017, before I published Red Pill, I looked into the camera and I acted like I had freaking freaked out. I wanted people to think I'd freaking freaked out. And to a degree, it was an ontological shock. When I say ontology is going into a particular direction to achieve a certain goal. In fact, actually from the Ontological Society, I actually got a medal early on in the project's process for our early work in replicating Francesco Celani, which caused the European Union to fund research, and that, along with letters that I gave to Congress, allowed ARPA-E to consider funding Lena in America. But I think it's all been a bit of a little bit of a let's give them something to play with, because this is the real prize, and I think they've known it. I think they've used it, and it's difficult for me when I know I can say something and I just have to decide whether I will, and I do. That's what I do. Get it off my chest. You imagine I couldn't sleep tonight. I would not have been able to sleep carrying what I had seen in the last 2 days. I couldn't. I had to get it to you guys. But imagine what some of these people that have been sitting on this information for the best part of their lives, and some of them that had to go to the graves carrying this information with them, that they had in their power the ability to explain to humanity, we have unlimited energy, and we must use it extremely respectfully, because the same technology could literally wipe out the planet. It's interesting because when Dr. Farrell was talking about, this is free energy, but it's also weapons that can destroy the earth. That was 2009, that presentation, by the way. Actually, the only other time that I had heard anyone say something like that was when I realized that 9/11, the event, was done with this. And then I came across Dr. Judy Wood and her brilliant global BEM presentation in 2012. So that's a full 3 years after Dr. Farrell's presentation here. And she said, we have the technology to give us free energy or to crack the planet in half. I know for a fact she met Ken Shoulders. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? This is the fight of our times. This is the fight of our times, to take our own destiny. To demand real disclosure. Not, oh, we got another video of something doing something that our planes can't do. No, that is not disclosure, my friends. That is trying desperately to keep those plates spinning. Trying desperately. They are hiding not reversed engineered technology, although there may be a component to that. They are hiding things that probably humans or humanoid beings that came to this planet to start with came here using. And it might be the case that people develop this technology, they go off, they find another rock to live on, and then someone deliberately forgets it or destroys the equipment, because otherwise, people might leave. There's just about 200 people in here in this live stream tonight. And you are the people that can share this. The experiments are there. They're so simple. Matsumoto's exploding lead wire experiment, it shows this. The ultra experiment, cavitation process, it shows the basic principle. And if Chizoff is right, and because he's such a worthy of respect individual, I don't think he would state it unless he was sure. This simple experimentation which he has showed has the potential to completely earth-shatter the belief structure of the naysayers, because it is scale invariant. This was Project Time. It was a natural follow-on from Cohering and O'Day Fly Me to the Moon presentations. During this presentation, we showed that the world egg that is at the center of a vortex and anti-vortex structure emerged in thinking in a 1934 paper that won the 1935 Montefiore Prize, and it was for Gabriel Cron, who worked at General Electric. The key point is here that in these quasi-holonomic dynamical systems, a special case of non-holonomic dynamical systems occurs in which gravitational and electromagnetic energies coexist. These forms show that the equations of rotating machinery are identical with those of stationary networks of ordinary differentiation is replaced by absolute differentiation. Or in other words, the appearance of the gravitational mass of the rotor during acceleration in a purely electromagnetic system changes all ordinary derivatives into absolute derivatives. The appearance of the gravitational mass of the rotor during acceleration. Acceleration is the key. Torsion is the key. Throughout the paper, emphasis has been laid upon a physical interpretation of all abstract concepts, introduced from the absolute calculus and of the phenomena taking place inside of all machines during acceleration and hunting. In every rotating machine, the following n-dimensional space waves or vectors can be assumed to exist at any one instant during acceleration. A current density and velocity vector, a vector which includes the flux linkage vector, magnetic vector potential, and the angular momentum, the rotor flux density vector. Although the expression stands for dyadic, still the dyadic can be represented physically by a space vector. This calls attention to the fact that two kinds of physical vectors can be differentiated, polar and axial vectors. This is what you see in our experiments. The medium by which it works must have been known, or the thing that does the job, to the people of who built the old Dongolia capital in Sudan, with the Kartik cross here, Qatar cross here, the Christian type cross here, and the Maltese cross here, all from this place. It is the wheel within a wheel within a wheel structure, specifically the Fortor structure, which is the auspicious symbol and its anti-symbol, the swastik and the salver stick. It has all of the golden ratios that explains all the structure and nature. And the implications are that accelerated rotation merges gravity with electromagnetism. In the work conducted by the Nazis, that was limited by attainable acceleration of mass. That is to say, they could only get so much acceleration mechanically of the matter that they chose to accelerate, whatever that was. In electrical systems, it's limited also by mass. But the beauty of a system that not only coheres into the core, but coheres into the core, subcore, and the other anti-subcore, and then passes that flux of material around in a loop. And as that builds, and as the overall structure builds, that loop and the loops within those loops, the loop and the anti-loop, right, and of the four subtors, they build and they build and they build, which means they're accelerating and accelerating and accelerating until the core reaches the swinger limit and you get a permanent gradient in the ether. That is when you get your anti-gravity. That is when you get your unlimited energy. It's done. Thank you very much. Buenas noches. Dobranoc. Good night.